We've all walked out of an action movie theater with that adrenaline still pumping in our veins. The hero walks away from the explosion, the villain lies defeated, the credits roll, and we think we've seen the whole story. But what if we haven't? What if the version we saw was just a cleaned-up illusion? There's a darker truth that haunts the editing rooms of Hollywood, a collection of endings that were shot, completed, even tested in front of live audiences, only to be sliced out just days before the premiere. Endings where the hero dies, where the villain wins, where the story twists one last time not to shock, but to disturb. Endings that challenged the formula, that felt too real, too hopeless, or simply too unpredictable for studio comfort. These aren't unfinished drafts. These were final cuts, real scenes. Some were printed to film. A few leaked through early VHS releases or were whispered about by editors who weren't supposed to say anything. And yet, for most audiences, they never existed. The version you know isn't the truth, it's the version that tested best in a room full of people eating popcorn. This list is not about alternate endings made for fun. This is about endings that were meant to be canon, ripped out at the last possible moment by fear, money, or censorship. So tonight, forget what you think you know about these films, because we're going deep into the endings that were real until they weren't. This is Action Undone, and here are 15 action films where the ending you saw wasn't the real ending at all. Fact has shown. Deadly Outbreak, 1995. The hero was supposed to die. In the original cut of Deadly Outbreak, the final scene ended not with triumph, but with death. The film, a by-the-numbers mid-90 seconds hostage thriller starring Jeff Speakman, was never meant to follow the traditional action arc. The lead character, Dutton Hatfield, was scripted and filmed to make the ultimate sacrifice, dying in an explosion that took out the bioterrorist he was pursuing. The production team shot the scene during the film's final week, complete with slow-motion collapse, debris raining down, and a final radio message that cut to static. Test screenings, however, revealed a problem. Audiences felt cheated that the hero didn't survive. In a post-Die Hard era, death didn't test well no matter how noble it was. Just 4 days before the film's limited theatrical run in Europe, producers ordered a reshoot. A new ending was quickly filmed. Dutton survives the blast, emerging bloodied but victorious, smiling through pain in a sunlit corridor. The original ending was shelved, and no trace of it was included on home video or DVD. But a rumor persists that a rare VHS screener sent to Israeli distributors included the death ending and that someone, somewhere, still has it. Deadly Outbreak is now just another forgotten action flick in the VHS graveyard. But the version we remember is a lie. Dutton was supposed to die. But he wasn't the only action hero who met a hidden end. Fact #2. Silent Trigger, 1996. The ending that opened a wound. Silent Trigger was built on Atmosphere, a moody, claustrophobic hitman story starring Dolph Lundgren as a sniper trapped in a building with his past. The released version ends ambiguously, with the assassin walking away into the shadows after a tense shootout. But that wasn't the original ending, not by a long shot. The initial cut, confirmed by crew members and Lundgren himself in a 2005 interview, showed a harrowing flashback after the final shot. In it, the sniper returns to a memory of a failed mission, revealing a massacre of civilians he tried to stop but ultimately caused. It explained his guilt, his silence, and his obsession with control. It was raw, political, and emotionally devastating. The studio, fearing controversy over the implied military critique, demanded it be cut. The director fought to keep it. It was included in early internal cuts, and even shown at a single test screening in Toronto. But after a lukewarm audience response and pressure from international distributors, the flashback was removed, and with it, the emotional core of the character. A few stills from that sequence leaked online in the early 2000s. One shows Lundgren holding a child's body, another, a burning village. They're grainy, color-corrected differently, unmistakably real. But the footage? Lost. Never released. Not even as a DVD extra. So when people say Silent Trigger was empty, they don't know what they missed. The real ending bled, but was buried. And in the next case, the government wanted the truth gone too. Fact #3. The Silencer, 1992. A government plot you weren't meant to see. On the surface, The Silencer is a standard early 90 seconds low-budget action film. Rogue agent, assassination plot, car chases, explosions, but beneath its cliches was something far more incendiary, and it all came down to the original final scene. In the ending that was shot but never shown, the protagonist discovers that the target he was sent to kill was actually a whistleblower with information about a secret U.S. government weapons program. In the final confrontation, the agent switches sides, only to be gunned down by a sniper just as he tries to expose the truth. The scene was blunt, unsettling, and directly named a fictional branch of the Department of Defense. According to crew members who later spoke anonymously, the producers received strong suggestions to tone down the anti-government implications. Some even whispered about unofficial visits from people asking about the content. As a result, the ending was rewritten. The whistleblower is painted as a fraud, the agent completes the mission, and the credits roll over triumphant music. The alternate ending was never acknowledged publicly, but fragments of it exist. A 1,993 promo reel shown at a Cannes film market reportedly included a brief shot of the agent bleeding out under a flag. That version was never released. Not in the US, not overseas. The silencer faded into obscurity. But those who worked on it say the real ending was too close to a conspiracy that still stings. And next one man took on a cartel and was never meant to survive it. Fact hash 4. One-man force, 1,989. A massacre that vanished. The title One-Man Force says it all. A muscle-bound renegade cop takes on the cartel after his partner is murdered. It's loud, brash, and deeply rooted in 80 seconds action tropes. But buried in its production history is an alternate ending that turned the entire film into a bleak tragedy. In the original version, shot by director Dale Trevelyan, the final confrontation ends not with the hero winning, but with everyone dying. The protagonist storms the cartel's compound, kills the main antagonist, but is fatally wounded. Reinforcements never arrive. His allies, including a female informant and a teenage boy, are caught in the crossfire and killed. The final image? A wide shot of the compound engulfed in flames, with no one walking out. That cut was deemed too hopeless by distributors. For a late 80 seconds market-chasing commando-style catharsis, mass death was commercial suicide. A new, upbeat ending was slapped together where the hero survives, and the teenage sidekick gives a cheesy one-liner before the credits roll. Interestingly, some early European VHS releases, specifically a 1,990 Greek dub, reportedly used the original version. Collectors claim the ending was raw, silent, and emotionally crushing. But all attempts to verify it have failed. No known copy has resurfaced. One-Man Force was meant to be a tale of sacrifice. Instead, we got another muscle man walk-off. But not every studio gave up the truth so easily. Fact hash 5. Point of no return. 1,993. A hidden cut with no redemption. A Point of No Return was the American remake of La Femme Nikita, featuring Bridget Fonda as a convicted killer trained into becoming a government assassin. The film flirts with redemption, a killer trying to escape her handlers, seeking love and freedom. But the original U.S. ending didn't offer freedom, it offered punishment. According to multiple production reports and an anonymous leak in an early test audience blog, the first ending had Maggie, Fonda, faking her death, only to be tracked down by her mentor, Gabriel Byrne, in a quiet suburban home. In a shocking final moment, she's executed not in a gunfight, but in cold blood, mid-sentence. No music. No credits for a full 10 seconds. Just silence. Warner Brothers executives found it too nihilistic, especially for an American remake. They feared backlash from test audiences unfamiliar with the darker European tone. The ending was reshot, with Maggie disappearing into anonymity, living a new life, a sanitized, hopeful finish that played better to U.S. demographics. Whispers about the deleted ending persisted for years, until a rough storyboard of the execution scene leaked on an old DVD forum in 2007. It showed Maggie on a porch, smiling and then collapsing backward. If true, the American Point of No Return didn't just soften its source, it buried its soul. But in the next case, what got buried wasn't just an ending, it was the last scene the actor ever shot. Fact hash 6. Diplomatic immunity. 1,991. The death they didn't want you to see. At first glance, Diplomatic Immunity is a standard cat-and-mouse revenge thriller. A man hunts down his daughter's killer, protected by diplomatic laws. It's low-budget, pulpy, and mostly forgotten. But its final scene had a disturbing edge, until it vanished. Originally, the film ended with the protagonist, played by Bruce Boxleitner, not only killing the antagonist but also breaking down, realizing he's become everything he despised. The final moment was a long, uninterrupted take, no dialogue of him burning the killer's diplomatic papers and walking into a police station, ready to confess. The performance was raw. It was said to be one of the best scenes Boxleitner ever filmed. But when screened for potential distributors, the ending was labeled morally confusing and too somber. The lead wasn't supposed to show regret. He was supposed to walk away a hero. So, the producers caved. They edited the final shot into a one-liner joke, followed by upbeat music completely altering the film's tone. According to a lighting tech interviewed years later, Boxleitner was furious. He said, "They just erased my best work." That raw ending? Never released. Not on VHS, not on Laserdisc. A single work print reportedly exists in a private collection owned by a former crew member who refuses to digitize it. Sometimes, endings vanish for marketing reasons. But this one disappeared because it was too real. And in the next story, the real ending was hidden for so long, fans thought it was an urban legend. Fact #7, The Last Match, 1991. The victory that wasn't. The Last Match is one of the strangest genre mashups of the early 90 seconds, part Prison Break, part football movie, part paramilitary revenge tale. It tells the story of a man who gathers a ragtag team of football players to break his daughter out of a Central American prison. In the theatrical version, the mission is chaotic but ultimately successful. The team rescues the girl, escapes in a helicopter, and the credits roll over cheering and laughter. But the original ending, screened only once during an internal cut in Miami, ended in complete failure. The daughter is accidentally shot during the escape, dying in her father's arms mid-flight. The film cuts to black as the helicopter disappears into the clouds. The mission technically complete, but emotionally hollow. This darker, more poetic ending tested poorly with the producers, who believed the film's absurd tone needed a feel-good wrap-up. A week later, a hastily written new ending was filmed with stand-ins and rear projection, one that looked cheaper but felt safer. No official footage of the original ending has been released, but a continuity script found on a prop master's website confirmed its existence. Fans who remember seeing the test screening describe it as haunting, like the film became real for 30 seconds. And for a movie that was otherwise cartoonish, that reality was just too much. But what if the ending wasn't just too real, but too politically dangerous? Fact #9. Martial Law 2. Undercover. 1991. The Ending That Burned. Martial Law 2. Undercover, starring Cynthia Rothrock and Jeff Wincott, was never Oscar material, but it packed solid martial arts action and a devoted fan base. The final fight, set in an underground arena, ends with a triumphant slow-mo kick, a cheesy final quip, and a fade to credits. Except that wasn't the ending they originally filmed. In a 1991 interview with an assistant editor published in a now-defunct fanzine, it was revealed that the original ending was darker, bloodier, and far more emotional. The lead villain wasn't simply defeated, he committed suicide in front of the crowd after being exposed as a child trafficker with ties to law enforcement. This brutal revelation and its fallout was meant to be the climax of the film. But after a fire destroyed a storage facility holding multiple reels from the first edit, the studio opted to piece together an alternate ending using outtakes and B-roll. The suicide scene, and much of the fallout, was lost. Only a few production stills remain, including one where Rothrock's character stands silently as the crowd disperses, not in victory, but disgust. That image, haunting and grainy, contradicts everything the final cut tries to celebrate. In the world of low-budget action, sometimes the endings you get aren't the ones the filmmakers intended. Sometimes, they're the ones that survived. Next up, one of the rarest VHS tapes in existence with an ending too real for even the director to revisit. Fact #0, The Expert, 1995. The execution scene nobody was ready for. The Expert was marketed as a by-the-numbers revenge film. A former commando turned vigilante takes justice into his own hands after the system fails to punish a brutal killer. The theatrical ending plays out exactly as expected. The villain dies, the hero disappears into the night, credits roll. But that's not the scene the director wanted. In the original cut, reportedly shown at an early industry screening in Los Angeles, the final sequence took place inside a prison execution chamber. The hero, instead of killing the villain himself, infiltrates the prison posing as an execution tech and rigs the electric chair to fail, causing a prolonged, agonizing death broadcast to the prison's viewing room. The scene was graphic. Too graphic. The actor playing the villain wore a prosthetic rig simulating burning flesh and convulsions, one so intense that a test audience member reportedly fainted. The director defended the sequence as a commentary on revenge as spectacle. The studio disagreed. Within days, the ending was ordered to be removed, and the footage was locked in post-production storage. The scene has never been released, and none of the DVDs or television prints include it. But a low-quality VHS workprint leaked briefly on underground tape trading forums in the early 2000s, and then vanished. For those who saw it, the word most often used was unforgettable. Next, a B-movie that accidentally got too close to a real-life tragedy and paid the price in the edit room. Fact Hashinon, Midnight Warrior, 1989. Too close to reality. Midnight Warrior was supposed to be another late-night cable filler, a film about a journalist who goes undercover in a crime ring and ends up targeted by corrupt cops. It had all the cliches, gritty streets, synth-heavy score, and a lone hero with a camera instead of a gun. But the original ending was anything but generic. In the final sequence that was filmed but never shown, the protagonist leaks his exposé to the press and is assassinated on the courthouse steps before he can testify. The last shot? A slow pan to the lens of his shattered camera, blood pooling across the sidewalk. The test screening for this version happened 2 days after a real-life journalist in New York was murdered under suspicious circumstances. The parallels were too eerie, too raw. Executives feared public backlash, accusations of exploitation, insensitivity, or worse. So, they made a quick fix. The ending was rewritten to show the hero surviving, giving a rousing speech to the press, and receiving applause from the crowd. The tonal shift was jarring but safer. Few remember Midnight Warrior now. But for a brief moment, its ending mirrored a brutal truth. Too much truth, perhaps, for late-night cable. But our next case is even more unsettling because the original ending was pulled not for politics, not for marketing, but because the actor himself demanded it be erased. Fact Hasson 2. Chain of Command. 1994. The ending that Van Damme rejected. Chain of Command starred Michael Dudikoff, not Jean-Claude Van Damme, but what few people know is that the original script and early development involved Van Damme in the lead role. He even shot an alternate ending during test footage and marketing development. In that version, the story ended with the hero discovering that the entire mission, a black ops operation in the Middle East, was staged by his own agency to manipulate oil prices. After a brutal confrontation with his handler, the character walks into the desert and commits suicide, leaving behind a recorder with the truth. Van Damme, who was experimenting with darker material at the time, reportedly pushed for this ending. But after seeing the rough cut, he allegedly panicked. His team feared the film would alienate fans expecting high-kick glory, not political despair. Worse, Van Damme reportedly hated how vulnerable he looked on screen. He pulled out of the project, and the role went to Dudikoff. The ending was rewritten to be more heroic, and all footage of Van Damme was ordered destroyed. Only a few stills remain, one showing Van Damme on his knees in the sand, silhouetted at sunrise. Rumors persist that a collector in Belgium has the raw footage, but the studio won't confirm. To this day, Van Damme has never spoken publicly about Chain of Command. Some endings vanish due to controversy. Others disappear because the actor couldn't face what he'd filmed. And the next film? Its missing ending was never meant to exist at all. Fact Hasson 3. Red Scorpion 21994. The ending the studio pretended never happened. Following in the shadow of its cult predecessor, Red Scorpion 2 was meant to be a low-budget Cold War throwback, complete with neo-Nazi villains and militarized heroes. It wasn't elegant, but it knew its lane. At least, the version we got did. But an early cut, shown only to foreign buyers at the American film market, included a final scene that no one expected. The team of heroes uncovers a CIA black site funding the enemy. The bad guys had been backed indirectly by the very agency that sent them in. The heroes confront their handler in a dimly lit war room. It ends not with a shootout, but a decision. They walk out, refusing to continue the mission. Fade to black. No flag, no triumphant music. Studio execs panicked. The film wasn't designed for nuance. It was supposed to be clean-cut patriotism. The scene was deleted from all prints, and actors were contractually barred from discussing it in press tours. In 2012, a VHS workprint surfaced at a military memorabilia convention in Ohio with a different final reel. It vanished weeks later, reportedly purchased in cash by an unnamed collector. Red Scorpion 2 remains available in cheap DVD bins across the world, but the version that questioned everything? That one's gone. Officially, it never existed. Next, a film whose real ending was so brutal, even its own composer walked away. Fact Hasson 4, Sweepers, 1998. The ending that killed the score. Dolph Lundgren's Sweepers is a landmine thriller set in war-torn Angola, a gritty, sometimes heavy-handed film about legacy weapons and redemption. But its original ending didn't offer redemption. It offered rage. In a sequence composed but never officially scored, Lundgren's character finds the last minefield one set by Western contractors decades earlier. He sacrifices himself detonating it, saving a village but dying in the blast. The camera pulls back slowly as children run toward his body. There was no music, only wind. The composer, a well-known European artist, reportedly walked off the project after seeing the footage. He refused to write inspirational music for a scene that should make people feel disgust. He later claimed in a trade interview that the ending wasn't entertainment, it was an accusation. Producers folded. They reshot the ending with a lighter tone. The hero disables the final mine, smiles, and walks away as the village celebrates. The score was rewritten in major key. The original sequence? Still listed in cue sheets, the composer's notes are archived, but no footage has emerged. Sometimes, it's not the censors who kill an ending. Sometimes, it's the people behind the music. One more remains, and this one was never meant to be found. Fact Hasson 5, Cold Harvest, 1999. The ending that wasn't even in the script. Cold Harvest was straight-to-video chaos. Bounty hunters, viral outbreaks, horseback chases through a dystopian wasteland. Gary Daniels played twin brothers, one dies, the other seeks vengeance. But during the final week of filming, a second ending was shot in secret. Crew members recall that director Isaac Florentine, fascinated by duality, crafted a new twist. The brother who lived had actually died in the first act. The man we'd followed? A clone prototype. The final scene would reveal this through a malfunctioning memory implant and a collapsing facility in the background. The twist came out of nowhere. It wasn't in the original script. It wasn't cleared with producers. But the director, reportedly inspired by late-night edits and exhaustion, shot it anyway with minimal crew and backup film stock. Once producers saw the footage, they rejected it outright. The entire sequence was shelved, and a more traditional ending was stitched together from earlier footage. Florentine never commented publicly. But in a 2004 panel, he said, "Sometimes your best ideas live in the wrong movie." The alternate ending was never included in bonus materials. No script copy exists. Just anecdotes from tired crew and a few continuity Polaroids, showing Daniel standing beside his own corpse. And with that, we end this countdown, a collection of endings that were real and then erased. Bonus fact, Laser Mission, 1989. The ending that predicted a death. This one didn't make the top 15, but it might just be the strangest of all. Laser Mission, a pulpy Cold War action flick starring Brandon Lee, is remembered mostly for its bad dubbing, awkward pacing, and the eerie tragedy that followed. But buried in its production history is a rumor so persistent that some believe the film predicted Lee's own death. According to a crew member who later wrote an anonymous blog post, the original ending shot in late 1988 featured Lee's character being accidentally shot during a weapons demo by a gun that was supposed to be unloaded. The scene was played as a cruel joke by the villains, with the blanks turning out to be live ammo. The scene tested horribly. It felt tonally inconsistent. But more than that, it shook the crew. Multiple people reportedly refused to be on set during pickups for the ending. It was cut within a week and replaced with a more upbeat escape finale. 4 years later, Brandon Lee would be killed in almost identical circumstances while filming The Crow, a live round fired from what was supposed to be a prop weapon. The deleted ending of Laser Mission has never resurfaced. No footage, no photos. The production company claims it was destroyed. Coincidence? Bad taste? Or something far more chilling? We may never know. But sometimes, endings don't just change the story, they echo through real life. Which version of reality do you believe, the one you saw, or the one they cut? Did these endings vanish to protect the audience, or to protect the industry? Tell us, which of these lost scenes haunts you the most? And more importantly, which one do you wish had never been erased? We've shown you the endings they didn't want you to see. Now it's your turn to decide which truth should have stayed buried, and which deserved to be seen.